Well, my last head talk as a participant as well, and I was actually planning a more proper head talk, and I was working on it. But since this leave was also somehow unexpected to me, I wanted to use this last chance of making this talk. So the thing I was working on, as some of you already know about it, I work on a framework on my own, which I started very early as a commercial project within a commercial project. But then currently I'm playing with it just to learn things or test things. So the idea was to bring something interesting, an interesting problem I've solved within this framework development, and make a talk about it. But obviously that's not happening, and this is my last chance, so I just picked the last thing I played with within that framework, and it was about pushing those assemblies to a pipeline, to a NuGet fit through a pipeline, a proper pipeline. Well, we don't usually do this NuGet package release in here. I heard that some of you have already done within your teams, but we usually deploy things to the production environment, to certain environments, but we don't distribute packages for later use of the consumers in our data. So I thought this might be interesting for those you don't have any idea with. Well, to talk about NuGet packages, is actually pushing a NuGet package to a feed, a public feed, is very easy. You can have a simple pipeline as such and have two tasks in it, and you can have your package, the assembly, pushed in a NuGet library. That single test task, which already builds the project and pushes it to the NuGet package, NuGet feed, will do your work. Only thing, you have to also tick the package on build option in your project, and when you run this simple task, you'll get your NuGet package in the NuGet public feed. But it doesn't sound that professional, right? It doesn't happen like this. You just don't build and push to public. So the problem is that what pipeline is this? Is this a CI pipeline or a C delivery pipeline, a build or release pipeline? Well, it's both. The first task actually does the build, and the second task actually does the publish. But we usually have separate pipelines for build and release, don't we? So the ideal way of doing this was moving this second task to a separate release pipeline and probably having environments in it for different QA or dev or staging. So that will be the case, and it will be easy to do, but there are certain problems. The main problem I encounter for myself is the dependency of the assemblies within the project. So, for example, for my project, I had seven or eight somehow assemblies, and they somehow has a dependency hierarchy within them. So when you do that, it's not that easy, because you probably want several different separate pipelines for each one of them, and they will need to go separately, but they will depend on each other. So which version will be dependent on which version is a problem. The one way of solving it is adding the dependencies as packages, building packages to each of the project you have. But that will make development a bit difficult, because then for each thing you have changed, you have to release the package, and all dependent projects needs to be updated back, and they have to be released back. So it will be a complex problem. So you probably would want to have project dependencies in such a solution. So and you want to avoid the package dependency among them. So to solve this problem, actually you need to have kind of keep the package dependency in the project and have a solution for version management. Actually, the problem here is about solving the dependency and version management. If you do solve it, all the rest comes back. Well, I ended up with a build pipeline such as this, with again 2 tasks in it, which does the build, which first one builds the project and the other one publishes, but this is not pushing the package into the NuGet NuGet fit. This is again 2 pipelines, and a dependent pipeline will have more tasks in it, but they are all very simple tasks, as you will see in a moment. That it only asks you the project name. If you have a naming convention, all the things you do is similar, but you just add the dependent assemblies all together. So all these pipelines actually builds and pushes all the dependencies at once, and I will explain why. Typically, a pipeline run will do this. It will, well, after check out the code, it will build and test the framework, the project, and pack it, and pack the, do another pack for production, and pack for packages. Well, the problem here is you have dependent packages, they all depend on each other, and each will get the version number for this build. So if you have 2 different packages, for example, each one will get version 100 when you build them, and plus build number. But probably you wouldn't want that build number in that place. So what we do here, if you, can you see the thing here? It's not very readable. Well, there should be this one. Well, the main problem was solved after I learned this one. So you probably all know about semantics versioning, right? This 100, and it's the major, minor, and the revision number, and the last bit is the build number, which sounded previously to me that the right-hand side one is a bigger version than the left-hand side, which wasn't true, and I was only able to solve this problem when I learned that one. Actually, the 100 is bigger than with any other version that has a build number attached as the 4th number. So basically the idea is you target the left-hand version, and you don't know what version you eventually will be releasing. So you release and build every versions coming up, and when you're done, when you get rid of the last bit, last 4th build number, that will be your final release, and which will probably go into the public feed or any production feed you have. So until that one, all your packages built in the pipeline will depend on the build number that it builds. So that's why we are including all the dependencies in one build pipeline, so that everyone can has the dependency with that build number. So they will be pushed into, each one of them will push their releases into the development feeds, and every dependent project will be able to use the ones they refer to. But when finally they go into production, every project will have its shortened version. I thought these will appear more. The idea here, to summarize, is that when building any project, you build both for a production, you pack for both production and development. Every dev build will be published into a dev feed, but then every production pack will also be built with that build, but dev build will go into dev feed and the production pack will go into production feed. So you build for every environment but deploy only to relevant feeds in the upper environment. So this one is this simple task which actually builds and packs for development. The first task also contains similar thing, does a simple build and packs for production as well. So we build every bit and pack for every environment, not every environment, 2 packs for one development and for production. You can push the production build to any other upper environments you have. So for the dev pack, actually, if you can see here, the important, you can't write. The only thing is how you version the pack task. The only thing you need to be careful about is that versioning thing. And for dev pack, you need to set the version number to the build number. But the production pack, you have to set it to a pipeline variable which you manually set. The version you target for deployment. And the typical pipeline will be like this. I think this is more visible. Well, you have the dev and PP, but you can have other environments. You can have a QA for acceptance tests, or this one is also missing the production environment, which will eventually be. This is my real pipeline setup, and it doesn't yet it doesn't have the production stage yet. But you will have the stages, and you can just connect them with automated approvals and production. But I, for now, manually deploy to the production environment. But it's like a typical release pipeline now. You have the build artifacts, and each stage deploy their own. Well, the tasks in those stages are very typical. They don't even have any test configurations. They only have the task group. Well, it would be nice if they were visible. Well, they are just deploying to the targeted feed, you say, and you say, I want this. This is my development feed. This task actually just contains the feed name you have, and you just add the task, and it goes into that feed. And for the publish task, you just in here pick the feed you want. The other task will have the production one for it. And the important thing is when you deploy for dev and when you approve, when you agree on that, okay, I will go with this version to production, you just approve it's going to the upper environments like QA, PP, or the other one. And when you do your production release, you will come here and increase this version number up 1, probably starting with a revision. But if you end up with releasing a minor release or something, you can change, or you can have multiple branches targeting multiple variables in here. You can have those ones, but after each production release, you have to increase this and target a new version. So that's basically how it happens, as I've read some Microsoft blogs about how they're doing in their pipelines. They are also following the same. They target one version, they can end up with a different one, but after each production release, they just increase this target number. And I have this in my library variable groups for one variable, so it applies for all the pipelines I have for each different project. Well, that's basically it. Those things can have some information that could be useful, but Okay, thank you very much.